when you're watching us back, whether you're with us live or whether you're catching up before the games start. It's our Friday night football hangout. Thanks for joining us. Got a few different people on the panel tonight, a returning face after a successful week last weekend, and I'm delighted to say we're going to specialise and talk a little bit soon about some lower league football, which is always great. So I'll introduce the guys to start with. First of all, our returning hero from last week, who I think turned a very good profit, Geo. Good evening.
Hello, cheers Sam. Yeah, just West Ham let me down in a 200 to 1, which all the tips were on last week's show, but yeah, my own team let me down.
Geo broke the first rule of betting, which is never include your own team in a bet, which as a Crystal Palace fan I can tell you is never a recipe for profit. My next guest is new to the show and is actually going to be touching on the Grimsby game for us a little bit later. I just want to say good evening to Rob. Evening, Rob.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah,
Sorry, Rob, it was a little bit crackly there. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been on OLBG for, and what sort of tipping do you enjoy doing most?
yeah, I've been on. I think it's 2008. I've joined OLBG, so it's quite a few years. I tend to bet on football, rugby league. I always bet on generally high odds games. I always go for upsets. I'm not a favourite backer. It's against my nature. So, you know, I always go for crazy results that nobody believes could possibly happen. I think the value generally is betting against the favourite in football. I think most people back favourites, and you know, I think the only way to win consistently is to back long odds, and that's generally what I do.
Well, that's an interesting take on it, Rob, and a man I'll introduce you to now who predicted probably the longest odds shot in possibility last weekend. I'll pass you over to Steve, who wants to say good evening to us all.
We said we weren't going to talk about last week's. You know, we don't want to, after time, and go on about previous week's tips and stuff. Like, we don't want to mention 3-2 predictions for 0-0 games. Yeah, not a good week for me last week. The goals didn't quite come where I expected them to, but no, we're gonna get that back this week. No problems whatsoever, and good to hear that Rob likes his outside bets on the football, because I'm very much, as you know, that way, looking for the value, and I've got a couple that I've highlighted that I quite fancy at nice long odds, both in the Premier League and lower down the leagues this week as well.
Well, I'm delighted to say that lower down the leagues is exactly where we're going to start, and I'm going to throw to Rob on this one in a moment. Rob's a Grimsby fan. I can remember in my time they were a Division 1 or Championship team, as we'd say now. Rob, what happened to get Grimsby to where they are now, and how confident are you that they'll see through the progress of this first game that you went to see and get to win the playoff?
I think the basic answer to what happened is, I mean, it's a long question. I mean, we were in the Championship for quite a lot of years, but we were very much a minnow in that division. So I think we were punching above our weight when we were in that league. Having said that, I think ITV did happen at the wrong time for us, and we ended up probably missing out on the boat on administration, and we ended up getting relegated quite quickly. 2 not seasons, but virtually. So, you know, how confident am I that we're going to get promoted? You know, I think it's very close. I think all 4 teams in the playoffs in the conference I think they're the 4 teams with the biggest budgets. You know, they're 4 teams with strong squads. They're all in good form. You know, I think any of the teams could beat any of the others on the day. I think it's like most playoffs; they're incredibly hard to call. You know, from a betting point of view, generally, I don't. You know, I think I'd avoid the playoffs games. They all tend to be very close. I think the interesting thing about this game is Grimsby's away form and home form are kind of the wrong way round. I think we've scored in 23 consecutive away games now, which is pretty awesome. You know, at home, I think we've got like the worst form in the top 10. So I wouldn't say confident at all, especially after 2 years of losing in the playoffs. But on the other hand, you know, of course, I believe we've got a great advantage. So, you know, this is definitely third time lucky, hopefully.
It's a very painful way to go out. Just give us a brief overview. You were at the game Thursday evening at Eastleigh to watch them take a 2-1 lead. I believe it was 2 quite nice goals. Do you think that advantage is going to count when they go when they have to go up to your place effectively? Do you think the tie is more or less in your own hands nicely?
Yeah, I mean, the problem at Blunder Park this season has been teams sort of sitting back. and frustrating the crowd, and especially the smaller teams. And thankfully, that's not going to be the case on Sunday because we're ahead, so the opposition can't just sit back and we'll happily let them. So I think it's going to be different to a normal league game, and we tend to start quite well, tend to score in the first few minutes of games. So I'm hoping we do again. If we take a 2-goal lead, then I'm reasonably confident we'll hang on to it because we've got a very good defensive record. But I think we're going to have to score at some point to get through the tie. I can't see it being 0-0.
No, it never usually is. But I know a man that's been taking a look at the other tie, Bristol Rovers versus Forest Green Rovers, is Steve. And Steve, you got a little bit of a stat for us on that game, I believe.
Yeah, just before I come up with that though, I think before Rob agreed to be on this week, I was actually sort of hoping against hope that Eastleigh might come up, because at least that would give Portsmouth a Hampshire derby in League Two next season. But as Rob's there, I think I'll be quite happy for Grimsby to come up, and the other team from that other place between Bournemouth and Portsmouth can stay down there. But actually, looking at Grimsby, they've got the 7th best home record. It's very, very similar to Eastleigh's, but and they've got a +16 goal difference at home as well, which is comparable to the +18 away from home. So no, I think you should be fairly confident. Rob, I'll be quite confident of the Grimsby getting to the final, almost certainly against Bristol Rovers, because they've only lost 2 games at home this season. They've got a 33 or +33 goal difference as well. So I can see them rolling over Forest Green quite comfortably, although they don't have a bad away record either. So like you say, it is really, really tight. But I can certainly see Grimsby Bristol Rovers in the final.
Rob, just quickly, would you agree with that? Do you think it's going to be Bristol Rovers that you'll be facing and hopefully not have any more playoff heartache?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously the most likely outcome, but, there's only a 1-goal lead in both games, so, I think the odds, if you're talking from a betting point of view, I think generally favourites are over-backed, and everybody thinks it'll be Grimsby Bristol Rovers, so, I'd say if anybody's looking for a bet this weekend, the value would lie elsewhere, probably in both games.
No, that's absolutely fine. So I suppose we better move on to the... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, because we were talking earlier, it might sound like a ridiculous question, but do the away goals count in the conference playoffs as well?
No, they don't count in any of the playoffs, but no, they don't, unfortunately. I wish they did, but having won 2-1.
Okay. I was going to say, it might push me towards the draw if, based on the fact that draw would be enough for both sides. There might be some value in the draws there, because that would be sufficient for both of those teams going back home to get through.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Strategy there from Steve. So we'll whiz forward now and we'll look at the league that's provided an awful lot of excitement this season, but it's sort of coming to a bit of a gradual end, and the Championship, which is probably everyone's favourite division to watch, least favourite to try and pick winners in. Gio, have you got a particular game this weekend in the Championship you want to start us off with to have a little chat about?
Well, last weekend I was quite fortunate because the teams I opposed didn't win, the bigger sides, and I thought Watford and Bournemouth would do it, and they did. And I'm going to stick with Watford again. I think all the teams that could come up are quite short this weekend, but I do like Watford on the -1 handicap, 11-10. They're at home in front of fans. They went up last week away to Brighton, so I think it's going to be a bit of a party at Vicarage Road this weekend. So 11-10 is a good enough value for me to take with a -1 handicap, and I can foresee like I said, a bit of a party at Vicarage Road and a comfortable home win.
Okay, Gio, well, you've started us off with Watford. Rob, Watford at home. You like to oppose things. Could you really be backing Sheffield Wednesday to take anything against a team that have got the Championship in their own hands?
No, I just can't see that one happening. Even I'm not that optimistic, not in that particular. There's a couple of other games I've got my eye on in the Championship.
All right. We will whiz through those ones shortly. Steve, you'd like to try and take Watford on, wouldn't you, this weekend, or are you not mad enough?
No. I mean, 8-1 is very, very tempting to back Wednesday, but and it does come out as value in terms of price against probability. Yes, I think the value is on that, but that doesn't always pay off. And whilst I won't be backing Watford at 1.4, it's a game that I'll leave alone. Yeah, you know what I feel about Bournemouth. I still want Bournemouth to go up as champions. I keep going against them. I keep thinking they're going to wobble, and I am going to take Charlton to win. Bournemouth have done their bit now. They don't need to go up as champions, and I will be taking Charlton because they're a decent price at 13-2.
Yeah, interesting. We'll get the others' view on that Charlton game. I personally think a -1 double on the pair. If you're looking for a bit of value, that's probably what I'd be doing. But I think these sort of games, Sheffield Wednesday, they've got nothing to play for, and people sometimes don't like that. They think they're dangerous if they've got nothing to play for. In my book, I view it as their season is genuinely over. A few of them will be out of contract. There'll be players there that are already thinking next week they're on the beach. There's nothing there. Watford are going to have, a huge opportunity at home. Bournemouth, I suppose, of the two, if I had to take one on, I'd take Bournemouth on. But Charlton have been a very odd side this season. Let's not forget they made some of the early pace in this league, and for me, I don't know. They've had a respectable season, but they're gonna need to improve if they want to get back up next year. And I fear for them a little bit. The money isn't there.
I don't know the stats, and I haven't actually done any research. It's just something I just literally thought of. The final day in the Championship is usually a decent day for goals, isn't it? Usually quite a lot of high-scoring games, one way or another. It's a bit of a fun day out.
You tend to find that there's some more, a bit like the first day of the season, you find some bizarre results then. I think even more so with teams that are not fit enough or teams that have been in pre-season for longer than others. I just want to take, Rob, your particular view on the Charlton-Bournemouth game. Do you have a view? Do you think that's a favourite you could oppose in that game?
No, not really. I haven't marked that one as one to look at particularly. I haven't particularly looked at it, I'll be honest, but it's not one that my initial look through the division stood out for me.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's not a problem. So, with the rest of the fixtures, there's an awful lot that's already been decided. Rob, did you have your eye on anything involving any of the teams around the playoffs at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, the matches I'm looking at really are the teams that have really got relegated, or the teams that are sort of avoided relegation, and Millwall and Brighton in particular. They're playing at Middlesbrough and Wolves, so I've got both those two down as away wins.
Wow, away wins.
Yeah, I just think that when teams get relegated, or there seems to be a sort of dead cat bounce quite often, and likewise. Yeah, I can just see the pressure being off for both those teams, and them just wanting to end the season in some sort of high.
Is that Millwall? Did you say?
Yeah. Millwall, who are away at Wolverhampton Wanderers, that obviously do need a result to see if they can sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, I would be tempted at the prices on the pair of them as well, but Brighton have consistently let me down in not scoring goals, and I don't see them at Borough. Yeah, Millwall at Wolves is interesting, but then Wolves
the goal difference
need to win to get into the playoffs if Derby
and Brentford slip up. But don't forget, Brentford have got a superior goal difference of 4. So
and they're at home to Wigan as well. So yeah.
So Wolves are going to need a cricket score. Realistically, it's unlikely they're going to be getting through to the playoffs. So again, I might even be thinking of the unders market, or maybe Rob has got a point. If Wolves are going gung-ho to get goals, Millwall nick an early goal, it could be quite a frustrating afternoon. Neil Harris will certainly possibly put out a slightly different side as well, with his future unsure at the club, and a lot of the players there will be moving on in the summer. Gio, have you got another game in the Championship for us we should cast an eye over?
Just to touch on that Wolves one, I've gone for Wolves to win to 0-11-8. I think getting relegated in midweek, it's going to be fresh on Millwall players' minds, I think, heading into this one. I just can't see Millwall being motivated at all to get anything from this game, whereas I think Wolves will come out the traps pretty early and look to get a quick goal or two just to put the pressure on Derby, because if Derby going at half-time drawing and they hear that Wolves are 2 up or whatever, I think that's going to be a bit of pressure on Derby. But saying that, I'm not touching the Derby price. I think they're too short to win. They've choked far too much this season for me. If they were running away with the lead at one point and just completely choked, but the bet I like from that game is Inns to score at any time at 6-4. He's got 11 and 17 since going to county, and he's got 4 in his last 3. I really like Ince as a player, and I think 64 at any time is quite a big price for a team that's still got the playoffs to play for. And if it's 2-2, they're going to have to go for it, and he's one of the men that will likely score if they do.
Yeah, I think that's a fair angle. I mean, what I would say is just had a little browse at the app, and actually Derby are just about edging over Wolves as more popular to back, which surprised me a little bit with the OLBG members out there. It's only about 1% in it, so it's not an awful lot. But both of those teams are being heavily supported, as are Watford as well. Steve, any particular views on the playoffs and getting in, getting out? Do you take an angle this time of year around teams that, like a Wolves, that potentially will score a few goals, but they know in their heart of hearts it's incredibly unlikely they'll be making the playoffs?
Yeah, so they're going to go all out. So that's probably a game that is going to open up. There's every chance that you'll see both teams score in that, because it will be an open game. Derby, as we know, aren't in the greatest of form, and they've really shot themselves in the foot in recent weeks. But I've just literally written down the prices of those 4 possible away wins. With Brighton at Middlesbrough, they're 6-1 best price. We've got Millwall at 8-1 best price at Wolves. Wigan are 9.50, as are Reading at Derby. If you backed all 4 of those, only one of those has to come off, and you're in profit over the 4 games. And that's something I've only just considered, and I might be taking a closer look at that tonight after we've finished it.
Okay, not a problem.
One upset out of those 4 games, you're going to make 3 points profit. You know, if you're back in level stakes, you're going to make 3 points profit minimum if Brighton are the only ones that do it. I reckon one of those 4 games will end up with an away win.
I think the other thing to consider is Middlesbrough and Norwich are in the position where they are, and Ipswich are comfortable in knowing that they're going to be okay, probably.
They've got a playoff place. I mean, they're going to be playing for home advantage in the first leg.
Which I always wonder if I'm the manager of the team, am I more inclined to rest my players, and does my players' intensity drop a little bit? Are we already thinking about the games next week, after next week? That's where I would be a little bit hesitant to back a Norwich, even though they're at home to a Fulham team that have looked pretty desperate at times this year. I would be a little bit concerned at those prices. I think Middlesbrough have let me down on so many occasions, and I do think they're going to be hit quite hard, because Borough were in the driving seat only 3 games ago. We'll finish up on the playoff contenders just with one question, guys. From those possible 7, who wins the playoffs at this stage, do you think? Who would you want to be keep on side? I know it's tricky, I know it's trappy, but I want one team, and if you can give me a reason, I'll be even more impressed. I'll start with Geo. He's more clued up than Steve on this. I'm looking at the facial expressions.
I would like Derby to come up. I think they play the better football out of them all. There was a debate on the OLBG briefly during the Arsenal-Chelsea game about style, whether you just go out and get the result or you do the style. And for me, I suppose it's probably tied in being a West Ham fan, but it's about style for me, and I think Derby play that. They play the better style in the Championship. I enjoy watching them, and so I hope they come up. But I think the value might lie with Ipswich, 11-2. I think they're probably the underdogs, actually. We've not mentioned them once today, and they're in there. And I don't know, I fancy them to beat Norwich in the semi-finals. And if they can get against Middlesbrough in the final, I wouldn't like to be touching Middlesbrough. I just, as you said, Sam, they've really shot themselves in the foot, but they don't score enough for me. I think if they didn't have Bamford on loan from Chelsea, I don't think they'd be up anywhere near as good as they are just now.
No, that's absolutely fair. Rob, any views on the playoffs early stages? I know we've not quite got the definite 4, but we'll know 3 of them more or less for sure. Have you got anything you fancy in there at the moment in the Championship that you think would suit the Premier League best? Do you think it's best prepared and will win the playoffs?
I mean, in terms of betting, I'd probably go for the sides that haven't been in for the in the Premier League for a while, just because I think a lot of people sort of back thinking it's going to be the usual teams in there. So I'd probably go for Derby or Ipswich maybe, because I just think the prices will be the best value. I'm not sure any of them will be particularly well prepared for the Premier League, but I'd go for the outsiders basically.
No, I think that's an absolutely fine angle to take. I mean, as a Crystal Palace fan, I can remember at Christmas being bottom of the league. Somehow we clawed our way into 6th place in the last day of the season, and we beat a West Ham team that were very well fancied to go straight back up. So, but for me, it's an interesting view to take. Gio's shaking his head. I don't think he's too impressed by my throwback to West Ham staying in the Championship.
You only got into the playoffs on the last day because we beat the team, so you got in. So we beat the team that was 6th. And then you leapfrogged them, so we didn't win that game. You wouldn't even go in the playoffs. So talk about ironic.
That's the ultimate shooting your own team in the foot. Steve, just quickly on these playoffs, we're gonna do a little playoff special when we've got all the teams finalised, and we're gonna ask for a treble and see if anyone can land it. Steve, who do you fancy as it stands at the moment to be going up via that tricky playoffs?
As it stands, I'm not going to be brave enough to try and consider who's going to be playing who in those playoffs at this stage, but I am going to take Derby to lose their place in the playoffs to Brentford. I think Brentford are going to get a win. Wigan, I think Derby are going to fall. I mean, they've only won 2 games out of the last 8. You know, and what you're tending to look for in these playoffs are teams that bring momentum into into this stage of the season. Middlesbrough are overdue a return to the Premier League, but again, their current form isn't as good as Norwich or Ipswich. My God, could you imagine a Norwich-Ipswich playoff final? What a game that'll be.
No one left to farm the fields in East Anglia on that day, would there?
And I should imagine the way that game would be played up. The Wembley pitch would be cut up, it'd be ploughed as well. They've got in the last 8 games, Norwich and Ipswich have both got 1-5, drawn 2, lost 1. So I'm gonna sit on the fence. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Norwich or Ipswich.
No, that's all right. At this stage, it's a difficult thing to call, and we are going to do a little playoff special because I think they're fantastic. I've always tried to get the treble. I'm going to whiz through you guys. I just want your best bet of the weekend in the Championship if you're going to have one. You don't have to say one. We're not holding a gun to your head here. And is there any other games in the Championship you wanted to mention? Because the relegation issue is done and dusted. Thanks to Rotherham's remarkable escape, if you like, and we heard Steve Evans might be on the touchline against Leeds wearing a sombrero and flip-flops as a result of a bet he made to keep himself up, which I don't think the Leeds fans would be too impressed with, but he's certainly a love or hate character. Gio, anything else in the Championship to consider and your best bet?
No, Instant 64 is my best bet. The other one I had wrote down was a phobia of Wolves at 5-4, I think, but it depends on the results. But just to touch on Steve there, he thinks Derby will come out of the playoffs. If you fancy Wolves to get in the playoffs, and there's a top of momentum, it's 66-1 for them to be in the Premiership next year. But obviously, if they reach the playoffs, that value will disappear overnight. But if you fancy Wolves to do business tomorrow, Derby to come out, and then them to have the momentum, it's 66-1. So it could be worth maybe taking and cashing out if they manage to make it.
But Wolves do have to have a better result than Brentford, don't they?
Yeah, plus 4 goals.
Okay.
It's too big. If it was a goal, maybe, but they're playing a Wigan team that, frankly, have been terrible this season and look devoid of any ability. Rob, just quickly for you, any best bets in the Championship you want to share with us, or any games that dead rubbers that you can see an angle in?
I think, for me, Millwall at Wolves would be my banker in this division. It's probably the only one I'll actually back, to be honest.
Wow, fair play, and this is what we're about here, guys. If you're watching or wanting to get involved, there's no discrimination. Some people are saying that's mad from Rob. When it comes in next week and he's back on here smiling very smugly, he only needs that to happen 1 in 6 times and he's in profit. So it works both ways. Just to say quickly, good evening to people viewing. Had a few questions here. Lawrence Keyhane's just joined us to say that he agrees with Gio that Ince is a quality player. As a Palace fan that saw him for 6 months on loan, I'm not so sure on that one, but we'll wait and see. So I suppose we move from one league that looks a little bit sewn up to one that's still got an awful lot of questions to answer, and we'll move into... Oh, sorry, Steve, did you just want to ask a question?
I just want to put everyone on a loser for the Championship this week.
Okay, go on.
I was up in an hour about Birmingham and Cardiff, both away wins. Birmingham would be my best bet. A Birmingham win at Bolton would be my best bet for the Championship this weekend.
Wow, okay.
3.4, 5-2, that's a lovely bet.
You think it's a wrong price in a dead rubber?
Yep.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what we're hunting out for. So I suppose it's only fair to move into a league that I think is equally as exciting as the Championship, and I can never pick the winner of, and it's League One. Obviously, some things in it are sewn up with regards to the top, but there's plenty to play for in the league as well. Steve, start with you. Anything caught your eye this week in League One, which plays Sunday, I believe?
Yeah, League One is Sunday games. I've got a huge list of League One bets this week, ridiculously, for the last game of the season. But League One has been my best hunting ground this season, primarily around the away wins, as always. If I'm looking for a bet straight away that I'm going to make, it's going to be down there at the bottom. Crawley are currently occupying a relegation spot. Coventry are in 18th place, but are not safe from relegation. But I think they will be after this when they go to Crawley and they take all 3 points. We can get 6-4 about Coventry win. It's not the biggest price for an away win, but I think they will seal Crawley's fate on the day.
Interesting. I do think those sort of games are horrible for both sets of fans. Crawley, who are in the drop zone at the moment, on goal difference. Unfortunately, it's a significant one as well. 2 Notts County. You're looking at 9 goals. They're not going to make a 9-goal swing. So suddenly that pressure's really on Crawley because Notts County can get away with the same result and not having to worry. Interesting, difficult league. It's a shame to see Yeovil fell off the pace so quickly because I'm looking at Leyton Orient. I backed them to go up at the start of the season. Anyone else been a little bit surprised by their fall from grace this season? Gio, if I start with you, do you want to touch on that at all?
No, I don't know enough about Leyton Orient, but they're playing Swindon, and Bobsley is a member on OLBG who's a big Swindon fan. I speak to him regularly, and he's pretty confident about his side's chances, and I think 17's a mad price for them to win that game, considering they're in the playoffs. I know they don't have anything to play for, but I think we were speaking about momentum. You don't want to lose going into the playoffs, but against Leyton Orient, who are stuck at the bottom, 17-10 at home, mental price.
But as someone that backed Swindon to win this league and has seen them slowly go from top and battling with Bristol City to sliding away to having Preston overtake them into second place, then the MK Dons, I couldn't back. I won't be backing Swindon with your money, Gio. If you gave me a free £50 note, they have burnt my fingers so many times this season.
On this, take a look at Swindon's form this season and their fall from grace after cruising along at the top. And that's a mirror image of what Leyton Orient did last season. So perhaps Swindon might be a decent bet to be in those relegation spots at the end of next season. Because that's pretty much what Leyton Orient have done. They've carried their form through from the final third of last season in the division and just continued with that all season here. I mean, they've been short prices all season to win Leyton Orient. They still are, or they still were a few weeks ago. But, someone's not smelling the coffee. They're not the side that they were 18 months ago.
One thing I will throw back to you on that one, Gio, is as well that irrespective of results, their playoff position will not change, given that they're 8 points clear of 5th and they're 10 points behind on 3rd. So they're not going to move up or down. If I'm the manager of Swindon, I might be throwing the reserves out anyway. I actually, you know what? I'm going to back Leyton Orient in that game. I'm going to go completely against you, and I'm going to go for Leyton Orient to get the result that they need to try and keep them in the division. They might not be enough, but for me, Swindon know that their bigger games lie ahead, and I do think they've been a very settled team this year from when I've seen them. He's not chopped and changed a lot. I can't be doing it. Rob, any views on that or anything else in League One you want to bring up?
I'll be honest, I haven't written anything down for League One. Nothing came out of my initial look through the fixtures, so I haven't really got anything to say, I'm afraid.
No, that's all right. You don't have to. We don't make you put a bet on in every single league. Were you impressed by Bristol City this season? They've been pretty dominant in that league.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing how teams turn it around from year to year. Their record's been pretty awesome this season. So whereas they've struggled, I think, the last few years. So it's a really impressive turnaround.
Yeah, and it obviously could be a double promotion if Bristol Rovers manage to go up as well and get both teams obviously going up a league, which would be fantastic for them. Not for you as a Grimsby fan. Steve, just on those 3 teams that are sealed, 4 teams I should say, that are sealed in the playoffs. We've got MK Dons, Swindon, Sheffield United and Chesterfield. I mean, all of them have got an interesting background and pedigree. Who would you take to be going up at this tentative early stage?
From those, I think probably. Let's have a look. I mean, I was literally just thinking about the Colchester-Preston game and what effect that's going to have, because obviously Colchester are looking to get themselves out of trouble at the bottom there. They've got pretty decent recent form. I know Preston haven't lost in 8 games. MK Dons, I don't know. Do you know what? Colchester are 5-1 at home tomorrow to beat Preston. I might be having a little tickle on that, which will leave MK Dons, should they win, in that automatic, and then I'll take Preston to go up through the playoffs.
Yeah, I must apologise. I just said that everything was set in stone. Well, it certainly isn't between MK Dons and Preston there. I mean, Preston have done really well to get into that position. It would be one heck of a kicker if they then managed to throw it away from there. For me, I've always liked Sheffield United as a team that seem to have this habit of turning up in. They've got a great cup run. I like the manager. I think if I had to pick one right now, I'd be looking at Sheffield United as a team that have got a big fan base that will get behind them. Bramall Lane's an intimidating place to go. That'd be my thoughts. Any other thoughts, Gio, around League One at all?
Touching on the Colchester game, there's a hammer at Colchester. George Moncur, he's a midfielder. He scored 4 in his last 8 games, and he didn't score in his last game against Swindon. Again, speaking of Bobsley, who's listening to the game as a Swindon fan, he was saying he was involved a lot going forward. You can get 8-1 for him to score at any time. I think that's incredible value for someone that scored 4 in 8 games. 8-1, massive price.
That is a wrong price, if anything, and I shall be probably availing you that. I don't suppose his dad used to play for West Ham, the player in question, did he?
No, not at all. He's just a young lad, and our particular manager doesn't really play young players, so he just needs a chance, and he's got one in League One at Colchester, and he's doing the business, and I'm pleased for him.
Don't worry, Gio, we're going to have a whole hour-long special on managers in the summer when we've got no football to talk about, and you can come on and tell us all about your thoughts on Mr. Allardyce, because I'm sure as a West Ham fan, you will have many. So just as a round-up, I'll start with Rob. You might not have one, Rob. Anything you think we should be backing in League One? You can say no if there's nothing you want to back this week. Rob?
I don't know, MK Dons. If I went for anything, I'd go for that. I'd just fancy them to go on and maybe get promoted, yeah.
Yep, not a problem. I'll agree with you. I think they're going to smash Yeovil into next week. I've been backing -1 against Yeovil for the last 3 weeks, and it's worked sometimes, it hasn't others. Steve, any cast iron bet or anything else you want to flag up?
Yeah, I mean, Milton Keynes have won 7 and drawn 1 of their last 8, so I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever they're going to go to Yeovil and take the points there. I quite like the look of Rochdale away at Barnsley. We can get a half-decent price. I mean, again, 2-1 away from home is not massive, but they're playing a Barnsley team that are winners in 8. So I think a little League One treble for me, which would be Coventry at Crawley, and then chuck Rochdale in there as well at 2-1, and then you can boost it right up with a 5-1 on Colchester, and that would be a very tasty treble in League One this week.
Wow, we're certainly shooting for the stars, and even as singles, you're not going to get some bad prices there if you're starting to think about it like that. So we'll eventually coast our way into League 2, which is a league we've had a question in actually already from William Dye. Good evening, William. Thank you for watching. We'll come to your question a little bit later. I'll make sure that one gets answered. I personally don't like the win to nil bets, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. League 2. This is possibly the place where we could be seeing your team in next season, Rob. Anything catch your eye in League 2?
Yeah, I think for me, probably my bet of the day is Luton v Stevenage away win. I think Luton have had a disastrous few weeks, and their season's it's over. A miracle, I think they can do it on full distance, if I remember, but it's going to need a giant score. Stevenage have already qualified for the playoffs, I can just see Luton being totally disillusioned, really, and just wanting to get the season over and done with. Whereas Stevenage might rest a few players because they've already qualified. But I think I can't remember the price. I haven't got it in front of me, but it looks it looked to me like the bet of the day.
I saw a certain member of the panel's arms go up in the air when you mentioned it, so there's clearly someone either in strong agreement or strong disagreement. Steve, you were more animated than Mr. Tickle there. Fill me in. Do we think?
Yeah, Stevenage 4.10. That's the one at the top of my list. It's just too big a price. It's as simple as that. It's too big a price.
And they're the ones you like to take a little bit of a bet with sometimes, that you can look at the teams and they could play 3 times and get 3 different results, but if the price is wrong, you've got half a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at this time of the season, as I say, there's going to be goals everywhere, but Stevenage are in a playoff place. They're playing Luton, who have missed out now. They can't, as Rob said, the motivation's all going to be gone there. They're not going to get into the playoffs. So yeah, 3-1 for Stevenage. I mean, they can't even go up and get that first away game or home advantage in the second leg of the playoffs either. But they're still not going to want to. They're going to want to play Wickham as opposed to Bury, depending on how that turns out as well. But no, I just think for that matchup, that's the wrong price. Unless there's something going on, team news or something I don't know about. I've not looked into that, but at this stage, that looks a cracking bet.
No, William Dyer's question relates to probably, I think, the most exciting part of this whole weekend revolves around possibly the battle for that 3rd spot, which gives automatic promotion in this league. You've got Southend sat there on goal difference 18, 84 points, who are going to have to go and face a team away at Morecambe. Never an easy place to go away to, whether they've got anything to play for or not. Sometimes, they're going to want to finish the season well. You've then got you're looking at Bury on 82 points plus 19 goals. And then you've got Wickham down there, who've got the best goal difference of the 3, 21, and they're on 81 points. So William Dyer's question is, do we think the treble of them all to win to nil is a good bet? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it all to nil, but I think they'll all be winning, won't they?
I don't have a bet for the Shrewsbury game, but to help, well, down here I've got Bury and Southend both to win to nil as part of my tips. So I totally agree with that. I'll have a look at the Shrewsbury one. But I think 6-4 for Bury to win to nil, 15-8 for Southend to have 8 clean sheets in a row, and they need to win. There's a massive price for that, I think. And if Bury win and Southend draw, all they need is a 1-0 win to overtake them. So I think they could play it safe and just look for a 1-0 and keep it tight rather than go all out and risk not winning the game and possibly not overtaking Southend.
I think this is great because even on League 2, you're going to be able to do some in-running betting here as well. And, you imagine there's an early red card in that Southend game, a player loses head, goes in over the top of a player, suddenly they're playing against him. And I think there's so many different permutations that could happen. And the goal difference, it would be on my mind if I was a Southend player. I'd be sat there worrying about it. And in this modern age, there's no chance none of these teams are going to know the score that's going on around them. It's not like the olden days when you had to wait for someone with a radio to tell you what was happening. People will be sat there saying, we need to score another goal, guys. And, I would say Wickham are the ones I'd be a little bit worried about. And I would probably oppose whichever 2 end up in the top half of these playoffs. I'll oppose. And I'll take probably a Plymouth or a Stevenage that have had that easier run, if you like, and haven't had that pressure. Because even if all the teams above them win, Wickham will be disappointed not to get automatic promotion. Do we think that's fair? Do you think my assessment's correct, or am I talking rubbish?
No, I think so. I mean, Wickham have got quite a tough match actually, because Northampton, they're not in great form, but they're not in bad form either. But they are scoring goals. In terms of Southend, they've not lost. Again, they've got a win 7, draw 1 in the last 8, but they haven't conceded in 8 games. They've not conceded a goal in 8 games. They've only scored 9, but they've not conceded 1. So, that's not a game that looks like it's going to be full of goals. Morecambe have scored 11, conceded 9 in their last 8. Southend are the form team. Bury are there. They're playing Dead and Bury, Tranmere. It's Wickham that are going to miss out for me.
No, that's absolutely fine. Rob, any views, any bets, anything else you want to mention for League Two?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the games where there's not a lot to play for, I haven't got the prizes in front of me, I'm afraid, but, I was looking at, I think Exeter v Dagenham, Shrewsbury v Plymouth, AFC Wimbledon v Cheltenham, and then along with Luton v Stevenage, I think I'll be betting on all those to be away with, and probably doing a Yankee as well if I can get a decent price.
A mad price Yankee from Rob there before he broke up. He said he was going to look at all the away wins, which, as we've spoken about before, can sometimes pay dividends. Geo, one final mention from you on League Two. Anything you want to mention?
No, just a 2-0 bets. I just think Wickham will need to win, because if they don't win, they'll be facing Stevenage in the semi-finals. And as we mentioned, Stevenage are in great form, and I've got them down 3-1 to win as well. So I think that's a consensus and bet maybe that we should really be looking at. But I think Wickham would rather play Plymouth than Stevenage, and so I think that might motivate Wickham to go on. I haven't even wrote down the odds. I forgot to write down the odds, but I think Northampton's lost 3 of the last 5. They've only beat Cheltenham, so I think Wickham should win as well.
Excellent. Well, I've got to say, there's loads of content already on the app. Sometimes it can take a little while to load up, but I flicked through League 1 and League 2 earlier. Our opinions are similar, apart from possibly Stevenage, which is an interesting one. I thought the Forum Shrewies would be with us on that one, but at the moment it seems to be a bit even Stevens between that. But don't forget, you can download the app. The link's on the side, or just go to our Twitter page and we'll post it out on there. It's really simple to do. It's free to use. You get people like Rob and Gio that add their thoughts to games. It's a free resource, and it's a fantastic way of hopefully getting some winners. Because let's be honest, these leagues aren't easy. These guys look at them in more detail than anyone else sat out there at home, and we've had winners, and the app is proven. It's a tool to use to try and get yourself some winners. Speaking of winners, Premier League, all done and dusted. My team, Crystal Palace, are the only ones that can really influence the title race. We did it to Liverpool. I don't think we'll do it to Chelsea this weekend coming up either. I want your best Premier League bets. In fact, no, I don't. Let's hold off those. Let's start with probably the game of the day for me. It's going to be Leicester-Newcastle. What on earth's going to happen here? I'll start with you, Steve.
Leicester-Newcastle. Newcastle going to take all 3 points at a very chunky 100-30.
Wow, even in current form?
Yes.
Do you not think Newcastle are a dreadful side that are just going to stay up because of other results rather than winning games?
Newcastle are a dreadful side, but they are also capable of suddenly popping up with a fantastic performance and a 3-0 victory. And they're likely to do that at at better places than Leicester City. Fair
enough. Rob, any views on the lunchtime game?
That's Leicester-Newcastle, is it? Yeah. Exactly the same. I've got that as a the away win. I think sometimes I overstate the value of current form, and I think Leicester have had a pretty dreadful record until recently. Yeah, they've won, I think it's 3 or 4 on the bounce, and Newcastle have had a dreadful run. But at the end of the day, expect the unexpected in football, and to me the values with the away win. If this match were to take place at any other day of the season, you get a much shorter price than this on Newcastle. So
no, that's absolutely fine. That's 2 for Newcastle. Gio, are you going to come back to form and actually look at the fact that there's one team playing very well and one team playing absolutely rubbish, or are you going to go? Tell me, what's your view on this?
I'm going against Steve and Rob here. I think Rob makes a point, expect the unexpected. Well, surely the unexpected is Leicester doing the greatest escape ever in the Premier League. That's what they're on course to do. The only way I think Newcastle might win is if Leicester have got tiredness from the midweek game against Chelsea. I thought they looked absolutely knackered at the end of the game, but I don't know if they were knackered or they knew it was game over, so they took the foot off the pedal just to conserve energy. Because let's face it, even when they were 2-1 down against Chelsea, it's very optimistic. But I don't know. I think I'm firmly in the Leicester camp here. I think John Carver's cracking up a bit. I think his interviews are worse than Pearson's. Okay, he's not called anyone an ostrich, but he's under pressure. He's talking about inviting fans in for a cup of tea to tell him about what he's dealing with. I think that's a man that's struggling. And my bet for the weekend in the Premiership is Leicester scoring both halves at 2-1. I think that's madness against the Newcastle side.
No, that's absolutely fine. You can put that one up there. for what it's worth for my money, I could see this possibly being a draw. The pressure at home on Leicester will be quite intense. They did pick up some knocks. You're completely right. I watched the 90 minutes against Chelsea. They played okay, but boy, oh boy, did they have people coming off after 20 minutes of injuries. And these are centre-backs that tend to play through the pain barrier. Jamie Vardy's had an injection to try and play. I'd probably be looking at over 2.5 goals if I had to have a bet on the game. I'd probably go with just shy of evens on over 2.5. I think Leicester are going to be a little bit depleted, but they play that attacking football. Newcastle, he's got to do something. He can't go there and not score a goal. If he loses 2-1, I just think, I don't know, I can't see Newcastle not at least giving it a go. And I don't think they're going to beat Leicester, but I think I'm going to go for the draw. I'll sit on the fence, go for a draw here. I can't see him losing.
Leicester have done brilliantly. You know, they've had a fantastic little run of form to get where they are. But, you know, sometimes these fairy stories don't always have happy endings. And you know, you have to wonder whether Leicester have given their all. I mean, okay, in the week, no one was surprised by the result. But, you know, and Newcastle are going to want to make sure they're safe before. They're not going to want to go into next weekend still in with a chance of falling into that. So that's, you know, another contributory reason as to why I think, you know, Leicester may have just hit the end of the road, and Newcastle can make themselves safe.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, whatever the result is, it's going to make the relegation battle probably more interesting. From a neutral's point of view, Leicester getting 3 points probably won't make them safe, but it will give them a huge advantage over the teams below them. If Newcastle get 3 points, I'd say they'll probably just about be all right. So it could be cause for celebration on Tyneside if Rob and Steve are correct. If Gio's right, it could be the beginning of, well, another dark chapter in Newcastle FC's history. Now, other games to focus on quickly. Sunderland at home to Southampton. Another team that are in the drop zone on 30 points. Can Sunderland get the results they need? I'll start with you, Rob.
Yeah, Sunderland at home. I mean, they draw so many games. It's just crazy. They just can't seem to win just regularly enough, but they don't seem to lose that often either. So, you know, I think I don't often bet on draws, but I can see this being a draw. No,
that's absolutely fine. You're allowed to have that view. Gio, what are we thinking?
By Sunderland. Sunderland are awful. Every time I watch them, I get bored. I just cannot see them scoring. Defoe's scored a few goals as has Wickham, but they're just not scoring goals. And I think they're in trouble, especially if Leicester win the dinner time game and Sunderland kick off at 3. They're under pressure.
No, you're completely right as well. And psychologically, how much of a disadvantage that will be, knowing that they're going to be having to chase them up. And who knows, Newcastle won't want to do their friends any favours by beating Leicester, but at the same time, they need to look after their own survival. But for what it's worth, from my point of view, Southampton have still got plenty to play for. They're 3 points off a European spot. Liverpool are faltering like anyone's business. You don't know what sort of Tottenham's going to turn up from week in, week out. I don't know, maybe Rob's got the right idea with the fact Sunderland draw so many. Maybe there's so much to lose, they won't score, but they won't let... I'd probably look at a 0-0, maybe. Steve, what's your view?
I can't predict it. I mean, plainly QPR are going to go down.
Really?
You
don't think QPR can spring a surprise this weekend at Liverpool then?
No, I don't. So that leaves Sunderland, who hopefully will get all 3 points against Southampton. And despite the fact that I'm predicting Newcastle will beat Leicester, I still think Leicester have got every chance of getting out, because I don't think QPR will do. And we've got the little issue of Aston Villa there, who are going to get beaten by Everton and find themselves deep in trouble. And we could have another cup winner facing relegation. Yeah,
obviously Wigan did it a few years ago, and they've now been relegated again. Gio, really quickly on this Villa-Everton game, any ideas?
Both teams to score 5 to 6 look good. I know Everton's been quite sturdy at the back recently, but Villa Sherwood's worked wonders with their front line with Grealish and Benteke. And Benteke's 7-4 any time. I don't get that price. He's probably the most on-form striker in Europe at the minute. And 7-4 to score at home in a game that, as Steve said, they probably need to win. I'm having that 7-4. Everton are mid-table, good form, nothing to play for.
I find Everton probably are up there with the most disappointing team for me this season. I expected a lot of them with Martinez, some of the signings they made. I think they've really disappointed. And I think your Benteke point's great because I know that I think Tim Sherwood's many things as a manager, but the one thing he does well is he gets his strikers scoring goals, and he's tried to play attacking football. So I'd much rather take that bet than Villa to win at home against an Everton side that could be anything. We're going to try and rattle through this because we did want to have a quick look at the Champions League. We've only got about 10, 15 minutes left. So anything else in the Premier League that we want to talk about? I mean, the Championship, we think it's pretty much sewn up now for Chelsea. I'll start with you, Steve. Any other games, any other tips, anything else that's caught your eye?
Yeah, I think you're going to be quite chuffed. I'm going to back Crystal Palace at 11-1 to beat Chelsea.
Are we as big as 11-1?
You are as big as 11-1. No, I'm not. Of course I'm not.
Oh, not a fan. Well, I tell you what, weirder things have happened. Let's not forget what happened to Liverpool. Unfortunately, Chelsea aren't nearly as susceptible to that kind of thing as Liverpool, and I think Palace are on their holidays a little bit.
If you're going to consider that, you might as well consider the 9-1 for QPR against Liverpool.
Which I don't think is the worst long shot in the world, because
Probably
I think
not.
Liverpool are dreadful at the moment.
That's a Rob bet, that one, I reckon.
Rob, what do you think? Would you rather take 11-1 Palace at home or 9-1 QPR away?
Palace are away.
Oh, sorry, Palace away at Chelsea.
Palace, I think, maybe Chelsea think it's all sewn up and, Palace definitely. If I had to choose between those two, not that I'm going to back it, I don't think, but if I had to choose, definitely Palace.
Right, fair enough. Any other bets in the Prem that we need to know about, Rob?
I'm sort of tempted with Stoke at Swansea, but Swansea, I must admit, both of these sides, everyone's got the sides that they never seem to win when they back either, and both of these are like that, But I'm dallying with the thought of Stoke at Swansea, just because the price look value to me.
That's absolutely fine. Steve, I'll finish up with you. Anything else for the Premier League this weekend?
The Battle of the Claret and Blue.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
The Battle of the Claret and Blue, the home iron will win. That's probably my favourite bet this weekend. I think West Ham.
Gio, can you see that? Do you think your boys have put up a performance to beat Burnley?
I've gone for a narrow 1-0 win for us on the blog. Claret and Blue, more like Claret and Snooze. Under 2.5 goals in that, spoiling my banker. I just can't see goals from either team. Burnley can't score, we can't score. But saying that, if you want a value bet, Kouyaté to score first for West Ham is 14-1. It's just madness. A midfielder that bombs on forward. He's a big lad. He can win anything in the box. 14-1. He's scored about half our goals recently. It's just nuts. He's come close every game. 14-1's madness. But the one I'm having the wee punt on is 0-0 at Anfield. 16-1. Liverpool look flat going forward. I think QPR might have a point there. So 0-0, 16-1. I'll have that.
I think QPR draw no bet or double result this weekend because I just think it would add so much life to the relegation battle. And hey, I think we don't like talking about managers getting sacked, but Brendan Rodgers, if he does slip up at home, use the pun there, not Steven Gerrard related, but if he does slip up at home, he's in real trouble, in my view. So we've rattled through the Premier League there. I think there's one last football issue to discuss, and that's the fantastic Champions League semi-finals that we face first legs of midweek. First of all, has anyone looked at it, and is anybody keen on anything?
I've looked at it because I was trying to find out when Barcelona were playing at home, and I've managed to mess up my travel plans terribly.
Steve will be there to watch the press conference or the post-match conference, but not the actual game, which is rather disappointing for him.
Yeah. I think on Tuesday, we got Juve versus Real Madrid on Tuesday night. Juve have been absolutely fantastic at home, and I'm not going to back Real Madrid to get to take a win there. I think it'll be a relatively tight game. I don't think we expect too much action. As I predict for Wednesday as well, the first legs of these semi-finals, they tend to be cagey. You've got Bayern Munich and Real Madrid that can afford to play, tight games. Try and get a goal on the break, get the away goal. I would predict unders for both games, to be honest. I can't see Bayern Munich coming out and getting a ton away from home at Barcelona, and I think they'll do a job on Messi, tie up the game, and I think both games over under 2.5 for me, and that's as far as I would go into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Juventus are in fantastic form. I like the way they play, even for an Italian team. Some people say, oh, it's a bit boring, but they will be able to at home especially, they will be able to frustrate an injury-hit Real Madrid. I watched Ronaldo get angry at his teammate scoring a goal this weekend because he didn't get the ball to knock it in for his 55th of the season or whatever it is. I just don't think everything's right at Madrid, and I wouldn't be amazed to see Juventus put them out. I don't think it'd be the biggest shock in the world. I really don't. My concern would be around Paul Pogba, rumoured to be leaving. We wrote about that on the blog, broke that story first. Looks like he's off to Paris Saint-Germain, and he could have a thigh strain anyway, so he might not be playing. It's going to be a tough game. As for Barcelona, I think they're shoo-ins to win this. I think they're playing the best football I've seen. I think it's better than when the Pep was there. I think the attacking force they've got, Bayern without Robin, they've got knocked out of the cup on penalties, dreadful penalties as well. I just think a Barcelona-Juventus final will happen. Gio, over to you.
I've dug into this a wee bit. I love the Champions League because I think that's one competition you can really get value if you have a fancy, that is, obviously. Because I think there's value everywhere for this for me. I've picked where I'm going to and I'm sticking to that. I'm a stubborn person. But Juventus have lost one game in their last 55 competitive games at home. That is madness. Ancelotti as well has only won 5 of his 23 games against Juventus as a manager. So I'm with Steve, under 2.5 in both games, I think. The draw and under 2.5 goals in the Juventus game for the first leg is 13-5. I think 0-0 is a lot better value at 15-2 there. I can see that being a 0-0 and Juventus looking to get their away goal. And go
short price for 0-0.
Yeah, but how likely is it to happen?
Yeah.
I think the bookies have to cover themselves, don't they? But I don't know. I think 15-2 is quite big. I mean, sometimes you see in the Premier League games at 5s, even 4-1 for 0-0. I haven't looked, but I'd imagine Chelsea to win 1-0 or 2-0 is quite short. So I think 15-2 is big enough for me. But for the Barcelona game, I had a look, had a wee rake, because I was quite intrigued. As you spoke about Ronaldo sulking, I think that's a big point, because the night before, when Barcelona won 6-0, there was pictures going around left, right and centre of Suarez, Messi, Neymar scoring 100 goals between them this season. They're all linking arms and celebrating together as a trio, and then you've got Ronaldo sulking because he didn't get to put the ball in the net. And I think that's a massive thing for me. I think Barcelona's going to win 2-0. To put my neck on the line big time. But where I'm at, the last 10 Champions League games, Barcelona have scored in the first half. And I think that's an interesting stat that I like. So 10-3 for Barcelona half-time, full-time. That's what I'm going to be taking for that game there.
Rob, we'll let you have a little polish up on the Champions League. What do you fancy? Anything in either game that you've got a strong view on, or any team out of the 4 that you really fancy to win it?
I think generally, my on these sort of two-legged ties, I'd go low on goals in the first games and high in goals on the second. I'd be looking maybe under 1.5 goals in both games.
Wow.
Perhaps a double on that. They could go either way, but I think both teams will just be happy with even just 1-0 either way. It's like the playoffs, same thing with that as well. First legs are very, very cagey affairs, and I wouldn't expect many goals.
No, that's absolutely fine. You're not wrong to have that opinion, but for me, this isn't a normal Barcelona team, and I think they could kill this game in the first leg. Don't forget, Madrid and Barcelona are still involved in a very difficult title fight. Obviously, it's going to be close, but we think Barcelona will probably be ahead of bookies. Will have them as way favouritism to be winning that. But they've got a lot on their plates. Bayern Munich, yeah, I've got a funny feeling Munich could fall apart. It could be quite a story that Messi comes back to haunt his former mentor, if you like, in Pep Guardiola. I think they're going to get the job done in one leg. I think they'll win. I think it'll be about 3-0, and everyone's going to be absolutely shocked. I think it's going to be possibly the demise of Pep's tappy football that's been replaced by Barcelona's slightly more high-octane pass move score, which, and then repeat, which is the impressive thing. They don't stop at 1 or 2. They play for 5, 6, 7, and that's how it should be. So yeah, I'm gonna put Barcelona 3-0 up as my bet of the week. There you go. You heard it here first. Guys, I'll throw back to all of you just to say thank you, and you can tell me your nap of the weekend. There you go, or all week if you like. If you want to go into the Champions League, so you've got mine there. Barcelona to win 3-0. If you're a bit cagey like me, you can go -1 at home, and I'd probably back Juventus to win the first leg. So that's mine. Steve, I'm going to throw to you. Nap of the weekend.
Rochdale away.
Rochdale away. For you, Rob?
Stevenage away.
Stevenage away. I know that's one we've all, that's actually a team pick as well. I think we've all nodded in agreement at that one from Rob. So that one would be the one we'd be putting on your coupons. And Geo, for yourself?
Ince any time, just for the value.
Ince any time, he thinks that's value. And you also like, didn't you, Wolves to win 2-0? I think that was your other strong fancy.
Yeah, I've got an accumulator for you, if you fancy a fourfold, anytime scorer, bit different, 14 to 1's big price, Afobe, Ince, Troy Deeney, and you might not have heard of him, but McManus over at Morton, on loan from Aberdeen, he's banging in the goals. I've done a blog in the Scotland games if you want to look at that, but I've put in why I back McManus, and I'll be very surprised if he does not score for Morton this weekend. Very, very surprised.
Yeah, you just email that across to me or message it across to me, DM that across to me, and we'll stick it on the comments on the YouTube when this gets uploaded after.
Yeah, no bother.
Perfect.
I'm a man after your own heart, Gio. I love an anytime goal scorer or each way first goal scorer bet. You get a couple up and you're looking at nice prices. So it's a bit of a mugs bet sometimes, but you've got to have them to have a bit of interest. Guys, I want to thank you for your participation this evening. Thank you for your questions as well. Andrew Powell, William Dyer, Lawrence, we really appreciate all your information and feedback. Don't forget, we'll be back next week. We'll have a couple of panellists as well. Steve will be unavailable next week because he's going to be enjoying himself on holiday, we believe. So there's a space on the panel, guys, so get involved, drop us an email, and we'll try and get you on. Or you can DM us on Twitter, just to follow the OLBG account, and we'll get you on to have a chat. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Have a good weekend.
Be lucky.
Cheers.
Cheers.